Her parents sold her for being barren, until a lonely cowboy with 5 children chose her. Lila had always believed the wind in her village carried secrets. It moved through the narrow dirt paths, brushed against the clay walls of small homes, and whispered through the tall grass at the edge of the fields. People said the wind only spoke to those who listened, but Lila felt it spoke about her, carrying quiet words of pity and blame wherever she went. Her village was small and poor, a place where everyone knew everyone else's story. Children ran barefoot in the dust, and women gathered near the well every morning, talking softly while they filled their buckets. Men worked in the fields or left for nearby towns to find small jobs. Life was simple, but it was not always kind. Lila lived in a low, faded house with her parents. The walls were cracked and the roof leaked when it rained. She shared a small room with her younger cousin, who had been sent to live with them after her own parents moved away. Lila woke before sunrise every day, lit the fire, and prepared simple meals. She cleaned the floor, washed clothes by the river, and helped in the fields when her parents needed extra hands. She did everything quietly, hoping her work would make her parents proud. But no matter how hard she tried, she could feel a wall between her and them. They spoke to her less and less. When they did, their words were short and sharp, like stones thrown without care. In the village, people believed that a woman's worth was tied to the family she could build. Lila had been married once, years ago, to a kind man who had treated her gently. But after some time, when no child came, his family blamed her. They whispered that she was broken, that something was wrong with her. Her husband had tried to stand by her, but pressure from his family grew too strong. One day he left, his eyes full of regret, but his steps firm. Lila had returned to her parents' home, carrying nothing but a small bag and a heavy heart. From that moment, everything changed. Her mother stopped meeting her eyes. Her father sighed loudly when she entered a room, as if her presence made the air heavier. Neighbors pointed when she passed. Some spoke in low voices, thinking she could not hear. Others said nothing at all, which somehow hurt even more. Lila felt like a shadow in her own life. One afternoon, a traveling trader came to the village. He rode a tired horse and carried bags filled with small goods to sell. He set up near the well, where women and children gathered to see what he had brought. Lila was sent by her mother to buy salt and cloth. As she stood near the trader, he studied her with curious eyes. "Is this your daughter?" he asked her mother, who had followed behind. Her mother nodded, her face stiff. The trader leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I know a place far from here. There is a man who needs help in his home. He has land, animals, and children. He can give her shelter and food."
He will pay for her travel. Lila's heart beat fast.
She felt like the ground beneath her had shifted. Her mother's eyes lit up, not with joy, but with something that looked like relief. She called Lila's father over, and the two of them spoke in hushed tones. Lila stood there, holding the cloth in her hands, feeling like she was invisible. That night, her parents told her the decision had been made. She would leave in the morning with the trader. They said it was for her own good, that she would have a chance to start again. But their voices held no warmth. It felt more like they were clearing space in their small home. Lila went to her room and sat on the edge of her bed. Her cousin watched her with wide, worried eyes. "Are you coming back?" the girl asked softly. Lila wanted to say yes. She wanted to promise. But the truth was, she did not know. "I don't think so," she whispered. The night felt longer than any other. Lila lay awake, listening to the sounds of the village. Dogs barking in the distance, a baby crying somewhere nearby, the soft wind brushing against the walls. She tried to remember happier times when her parents had laughed with her, when she believed her future was bright. Before sunrise, she packed her small bag. It held a worn dress, a simple scarf, and a small wooden charm her grandmother had given her long ago. She tied it to the strap of her bag, hoping it would bring her comfort. Her parents did not walk her to the edge of the village. The trader waited with his horse, and Lila climbed onto the cart behind him. As they moved away, she looked back one last time. The village grew smaller, then faded into the morning light. The road was long and dusty. They passed open fields, quiet rivers, and small towns that felt just as lonely as her own. The trader did not speak much. Lila spent most of the journey looking at the sky, watching clouds drift by, wondering where she was being taken. She thought about the man she was going to meet. She did not know his name or his face. She only knew he had 5 children and a lonely home. The thought made her chest tighten. She wondered if those children would look at her the way people in her village had, with blame and doubt. As the sun began to set, the land changed. The fields gave way to wide open spaces, and the air felt different, cleaner, sharper. In the distance, Lila saw a small ranch with a wooden fence and a few buildings standing against the orange sky. The trader slowed the horse and pointed. "That's the place," he said. Lila took a deep breath. Her hand shook as she climbed down from the cart. The ranch was quiet, almost too quiet. Then she heard footsteps. A man stepped out of the main house. He was tall, with tired eyes and a worn hat. Behind him, 5 children peeked around the door, their faces curious and unsure. The man looked at Lila, then at the trader. "You must be the one they sent," he said gently. Lila nodded, unable to find her voice. The trader handed the man a small paper and took the payment. Without another word, he turned and rode away, leaving Lila standing there with strangers. The man walked closer and offered a small smile. "My name is Thomas," he said. "You can come inside. It's almost dark." Lila followed him into the house. It was simple but warm, with a table in the center and chairs around it. The children watched her closely. One of the smaller ones stepped forward and tugged at her sleeve. Are you staying?" the child asked. Lila knelt down, meeting the child's eyes. She saw the same uncertainty she felt in her own heart. "I don't know," she said softly, "but I hope so." As the door closed behind her, Lila felt something new rise inside her. It was not hope, not yet, but it was a quiet feeling that maybe, just maybe, this place could become more than a stop on her long journey. The next morning, Lila woke to the sound of birds outside the small window. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered the long road, the quiet ranch, and the 5 pairs of eyes watching her from the doorway the night before. She sat up slowly. The room was simple, with a small bed, a wooden chair, and a shelf that held a few old books. Sunlight slipped through the thin curtain and painted soft lines on the floor. It did not feel like her old home, but it did not feel cold either. When she stepped outside, the air smelled of grass and fresh earth. The ranch stretched wide in every direction. Fences ran along the fields, and a few cows grazed quietly in the distance. Thomas stood near the barn, fixing a loose board. He looked tired but focused, like a man who carried many thoughts in his mind. The children were nearby. The oldest, a boy named Eli, tried to help with the fence, while 2 younger ones chased each other around a post. A small girl with braided hair sat on the steps, watching Lila closely. Lila walked toward them, unsure what to do. In her village, she always knew her place. Here, she felt like she was standing on new ground, careful with every step, Thomas noticed her and nodded.
"Morning," he said. "Good morning," Lila replied.
He wiped his hands on his pants and looked around. You don't have to help right away. You can rest. Lila shook her head gently. I want to be useful. Thomas studied her for a moment, then pointed toward the house. If you like, you can help with breakfast. The children get hungry fast. Lila smiled, relieved to have a task. She went inside and found a small kitchen with a stove and a few shelves of simple food. She cooked what she could, using the little she knew and the little that was there. Soon the smell of warm bread and eggs filled the room. One by one the children came to the table. They sat quietly at first, glancing at her and then at their plates. Lila placed food in front of each of them, careful and gentle. The smallest boy, Sam, looked up at her with bright eyes.
"Did you make this?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Color."
It's good, he said with a big smile. That small moment warmed her more than she expected. After breakfast, Thomas went back to work. The children had chores of their own. Eli took the older girl, Rose, to gather eggs from the chicken coop. The younger ones followed Lila around the house, curious about everything she did. She showed them how to fold clothes, how to sweep the floor, and how to wash hands before eating. They laughed when she told them stories from her village about festivals and river days. In return, they told her about their mother. She used to sing, Rose said softly, at night when it was quiet. Lila listened, feeling the space that woman had left behind. She did not try to fill it. She only sat with them, letting their words fall into the air. In the afternoon, Thomas called Lila outside. I need to go into town for supplies, he said. You can come if you like. Or you can stay with the kids. Lila chose to go. She wanted to see more of this new place. The town was small, with a few shops, a dusty road, and people who moved slowly, as if they were not in a hurry to be anywhere else. As they walked, Thomas carried a list in his hand. Lila followed beside him. Some people in town looked at her with curious eyes. A few whispered. Lila felt the old feeling return, that sense of being judged without a word spoken to her.
Thomas noticed.
People talk, he said quietly. They always do. You don't have to listen. Lila nodded, but she wondered if she ever truly could stop hearing them. At the store, Thomas bought food, tools, and a small bundle of cloth. He handed the cloth to Lila. For you, he said. You didn't come with much. Lila held it, surprised. Thank you, she said, her voice low. When they returned to the ranch, the children ran to meet them. Sam grabbed Thomas's leg, while Rose reached for the cloth in Lila's hands. Is that for you? Rose asked. Yes, Lila said. It's pretty, Rose said, smiling. That night, they ate together at the table. Thomas talked about the day's work. The children shared small stories, laughing at simple things. Lila listened, feeling like she was standing near a fire that had been cold for a long time, slowly warming her hands. Later, after the children went to bed, Thomas sat on the porch. Lila brought him a cup of water and sat a short distance away.
"You don't have to do all this," he said.
You've done enough today. Lila looked at the stars above them. I like helping, she said. It makes me feel like I belong somewhere. Thomas was quiet for a moment. Belonging isn't something you earn, he said. It's something people give. Lila thought about those words long after she returned to her room. The days passed in a steady rhythm. Mornings were filled with work. Afternoons were quieter, with the children doing their lessons, and Lila helping where she could. Evenings were for meals and stories. Slowly, the children grew closer to her. Sam held her hand when he walked. Rose asked her to brush her hair at night. The older boys listened when she spoke. even when they tried to act like they did not care. One day, Eli came to her with a problem.
"The fence by the far field is broken again," he said. "Dad is tired." Lila went with him.
She could not fix the fence like Thomas could, but she held the board steady and handed Eli the tools. When Thomas arrived, he found them working together. A small smile crossed his face. In town, people began to notice the change. They saw the children walking closer together, laughing more. They saw Lila standing beside Thomas, not behind him. Some still whispered, but others started to nod when they passed. One evening, a woman from town came by with a basket of apples. "For the kids," she said. Her eyes met Lila's for a moment, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Lila thanked her, feeling something shift in the air. That night, after the children were asleep, Thomas spoke. "You've changed this place," he said. Lila shook her head. "I just do small things." "Small things matter," he replied.
Lila went to bed thinking about her old village, about the way people had looked at her there.
She thought about the way the children here looked at her now. For the first time in a long while, she did not feel like a shadow. She felt like someone standing in the light of a new day, not knowing what would come next, but no longer afraid to find out. The season began to change, and the land around the ranch slowly turned a softer color. The grass lost its bright green and became gold at the edges. The air felt cooler in the mornings, and the sky seemed wider than before. Lila noticed these things as she walked outside each day, feeling like the world itself was moving forward with her. By now, the ranch no longer felt strange. The sounds of the animals, the creak of the barn door, and the voices of the children had become part of her daily life. She moved through the house with quiet confidence, knowing where things belonged and what needed to be done before anyone asked. The children had also changed. They laughed more easily. They argued less. Even Eli, who once tried to act strong and distant, now asked Lila for help when he did not understand something in his lessons. One afternoon, Lila sat at the table with the younger children, helping them practice their letters. Sam held his pencil in a tight fist, his tongue sticking out as he tried to copy each shape. "This one looks funny," he said, pointing at a crooked letter. Lila smiled. "That's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to try." Sam nodded, as if this was the most important lesson he had ever heard. Rose sat nearby, braiding a piece of string instead of doing her work.
Lila gently touched her shoulder. "Your turn," she said.
Rose sighed, but she picked up her book. "Mom used to help me with this," she said quietly. Lila paused. She knew that feeling, the sudden wave of missing someone who had once been there every day. She did not try to replace Rose's mother. She only sat closer. "She must have been very kind," Lila said. Rose nodded. She was. Later, when Thomas came inside, he saw the children sitting together at the table, their heads bent over their work. He leaned against the doorframe for a moment, watching without speaking. That evening, Thomas asked Lila to walk with him to the far field. The sun was low, painting the sky in soft orange and pink colors. The cows moved slowly, their bells making quiet sounds in the distance. "You've done more than help here," Thomas said as they walked. "You've given them something I couldn't." Lila shook her head. "You give them everything."
"I just listen. Listening is not a small thing," he replied.
They stood near the fence, looking out at the land. Lila felt the cool breeze on her face. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence felt easy, not heavy. A few days later, trouble came in a way Lila did not expect. A man from town arrived at the ranch in the middle of the afternoon. He was well-dressed and carried himself with confidence. Lila was in the yard with Sam and Rose when she saw him. "Is Thomas here?" the man asked. Yes, Lila said. He's in the barn. The man nodded and walked away without another word. Lila felt a strange feeling in her chest, but she brushed it aside. Later that evening, Thomas looked tired. He sat at the table longer than usual, staring at his hands. "What happened?" Lila asked softly. He took a deep breath. "The man from town works for someone who claims they have a right to you." Lila felt the room spin. "A right to me?" she whispered. Thomas nodded. "They say your parents agreed to something? That you were sent here as part of a deal not to stay?" Lila's hands shook. The old fear rushed back, the feeling of being moved from place to place without a choice. "I don't want to go," she said, her voice breaking. Thomas looked at her, really looked at her, as if he was seeing her pain for the first time in full.
"You don't have to," he said firmly. "You're not an object."
"You're a person." The children, who had been listening quietly, came closer. Sam grabbed Lila's hand. Rose stood on her other side. "You can't take her," Rose said, her voice small but strong. "She's ours." Lila knelt down, pulling them close. Tears filled her eyes, but she tried to smile. The next day, more people from town came to talk. They stood outside the house, speaking in low, serious voices with Thomas. Lila watched from the window, her heart beating fast. She thought about her parents, about the way they had looked at her when they made their choice. She wondered if they had ever thought about where she would go, or how she would feel. That night, Thomas called everyone into the main room. The children sat on the floor. Lila stood near the wall. "I spoke to them," Thomas said. "They can't force you to leave. There's nothing written. No law that says you belong to anyone." Lila felt her knees grow weak. She sat down, letting out a breath she felt like she had been holding for weeks. "But," Thomas continued, "people will talk. Some may not like that you're here." Lila nodded. "They talked before. They will talk again." The children cheered quietly, as if afraid to wake the night. In the days that followed, Lila noticed how the town looked at her differently. Some people smiled, some still whispered. But now, when Lila walked through the market with the children, she felt stronger. She was not alone. One afternoon, an older woman stopped her. "The kids look happy," she said. Lila smiled. "They make me happy too." The woman nodded slowly, as if thinking about something. "That matters," she said before walking away. At the ranch, life returned to its steady rhythm, but something had changed inside Lila. She no longer felt like she was only passing through. She felt rooted, like a tree that had finally found good soil. One evening, the children asked Lila to tell them a story. They gathered around her on the floor, their eyes bright. "Tell us about when you were little," Sam said. Lila thought for a moment. "I used to sit by the river near my village," she began. "I would throw small stones into the water and watch the circles spread. My grandmother told me that every small action makes a change, even if you can't see it right away." The children listened closely, as if these words were part of a secret. Later, when everyone was asleep, Lila sat outside alone. The sky was full of stars. She held her grandmother's wooden charm in her hand. She thought about the circles and the water, about how her life had moved in ways she never planned. She had been pushed away, judged, and sent off without a choice. But now, she was here, in a place where people called her by name, where children reached for her hand. Thomas stepped outside and sat a short distance away. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Just thinking," Lila said. He nodded. "Me too." They sat in silence. the kind that feels like company, not distance. I'm glad you stayed, Thomas said quietly. Lila looked at him, surprised. So, am I? She replied. In that moment, Lila realized something important. She had spent so much of her life trying to prove her worth, trying to show that she was useful, that she mattered. But here she did not need to prove anything. She was already part of something real. As she went back inside, she felt a calm settle in her heart. She did not know what the future would bring. She did not know what challenges still waited ahead, but she knew one thing for sure. She was no longer alone in the world. The first snow came quietly, like a soft promise laid over the land. Lila woke to find the ranch covered in white. The fences, the barn roof, and even the wide fields looked gentle and new, as if the world had been given a fresh start. The children ran outside, laughing as their boots left deep marks in the snow. Their voices echoed across the open space, bright and full of life. Lila stood at the doorway, watching them. She pulled her scarf tighter around her shoulders and smiled. For the first time in many years, winter did not feel lonely. Thomas was already awake, chopping wood near the barn. The cold made his breath rise in small clouds. He waved when he saw Lila and the children. "Careful out there," he called. Sam ignored the warning and slipped, landing on his back. He laughed even harder. Rose helped him up, brushing snow from his coat. Inside the house, the fire crackled softly. Lila prepared a warm meal, her hands moving with ease. The children came in, one by one, cheeks red from the cold, and gathered around the table. As they ate, Eli looked up. "Will you stay with us for winter?" he asked. Lila paused. The question was simple, but it carried so much inside it. "Yes," she said, "I will." The children cheered, and Thomas hid a small smile behind his cup. Life during winter moved slower. The days were shorter, and the nights felt longer. They spent more time inside, telling stories, fixing small things around the house, and reading old books by the fire. Lila taught the children songs from her village, soft and gentle, and they taught her the songs their mother used to sing. The house filled with a mix of voices, past and present, blending into something new. One afternoon, a visitor arrived. Lila saw a familiar face at the gate. It was the trader who had brought her to the ranch months ago. Her heart began to beat fast. Thomas stepped forward. "What do you want?" he asked. The trader shifted on his feet. "There are people looking for her again," he said, pointing toward Lila. "They say her family wants her back. They claim she was never meant to stay here." Lila felt the warmth of the house fade. The cold from outside seemed to move into her chest. Thomas stood firm.
"She stays because she chooses to," he said. "Not because anyone sends her." The trader looked uncertain.
"They might come themselves next time." After he left, silence filled the yard. That night, Lila could not sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind push against the walls. Old fears crept back into her mind. The feeling of being unwanted, the memory of her parents' distant eyes. In the morning, she went to the barn to find Thomas. "I don't want to cause trouble for you or the kids," she said. "If people come, if things get hard, maybe I should leave." Thomas put down his tools. "You are not trouble," he said. "You are family." The word made Lila's chest tighten. Family. It was a word she had not felt close to in a long time. "But what if they take me?" she asked. "They won't," he said. "Not while I'm here." The children overheard them. Sam ran over and hugged Lila's leg. "You can't go." he said.
Who will tell us stories?
Rose crossed her arms. And who will help me with my braids? Even Eli, who tried to act grown, looked away, hiding the worry in his eyes. Lila knelt down and held them all. I'm not going anywhere, she said, even though part of her still felt afraid. A few days later, 2 people from Lila's old village arrived. A man and a woman, wrapped in heavy coats, their faces serious. They stood at the gate, waiting. Thomas went to meet them, but Lila walked beside him. We came for her, the man said. Her family wants her back. Lila stepped forward. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. I don't belong to anyone, she said.
I choose where I stay. The woman looked at her closely. Your parents say they need you.
They say you were wrong to leave. Lila thought of her small room, the cold silence, the way her name had felt heavy in her own home. She looked back at the ranch, at the house where children laughed and called for her, at the man who stood beside her, not in front, not behind. I have a life here, she said. I am not coming back. The man frowned. People will talk. They always do, Lila replied. Dull. After a long moment, the 2 turned away and left. Lila felt her legs grow weak. Thomas placed a steady hand on her shoulder. You were brave, he said. The children ran out of the house, cheering quietly when they saw the visitors leave. They surrounded Lila, laughing and talking all at once. That evening, the house felt warmer than ever. Lila cooked a special meal using the last of the dried herbs she had saved. They sat around the table, sharing stories, laughing at small mistakes, enjoying the simple joy of being together. Later, when the children were asleep, Lila and Thomas sat by the fire. I never thought I would stand up like that, Lila said. Thomas nodded. Sometimes we don't know our own strength until we need it. Lila stared at the flames. I spent so much of my life being told I was not enough, she said. Not enough for my family, not enough for my village. Thomas looked at her. You are more than enough here. The words stayed with her long after she went to bed. Winter passed slowly, then began to loosen its hold. The snow melted, turning into small streams that ran across the fields. The grass pushed up through the soft earth, green and fresh. With spring came new energy. The children helped plant a small garden. Lila showed them how to place seeds carefully into the soil, how to cover them gently. Why so careful? Sam asked. Because even small things need care to grow, she said. The children nodded, taking the task seriously. One afternoon, a storm rolled in. Dark clouds filled the sky, and thunder rumbled in the distance. The children gathered inside, watching rain hit the windows. Lila sat with them, telling stories to keep their minds off the noise. Thomas worked to secure the barn doors, making sure everything was safe. When the storm passed, the air felt clean and fresh. A rainbow stretched across the sky, Rose pointed. Look! They all ran outside. Lila felt a quiet joy rise inside her. Moments like this, simple and shared, felt more valuable than anything she had lost. That night, as the stars appeared, Thomas spoke again. You don't have to prove yourself anymore, he said. You already belong. Lila looked at the sky, at the wide world above them. She thought about the girl she had been, standing on a dusty road with a small bag and no idea where she was going. She thought about the woman she was now, standing in a place she had chosen, surrounded by people who chose her back. For the first time, the past did not feel like a weight. It felt like a path that had led her exactly where she needed to be. And as the night settled over the ranch, Lila felt something steady and strong inside her. Not fear, not doubt, Spring moved fully into summer, and the ranch felt alive in a way Lila had never seen before. The garden the children had planted began to grow tall and strong. Small green leaves turned into rows of fresh food, and the air often smelled of warm earth and sunlight. Every morning, Lila stepped outside and felt thankful just to breathe in the open sky. The children ran through the fields with energy that never seemed to fade. Sam chased butterflies. Rose practiced skipping stones near the small stream that ran along the edge of the land. Eli helped Thomas with the harder work now, his shoulders growing broader, his voice growing deeper. Lila watched them and felt a quiet pride, like a soft light inside her chest. One afternoon, a letter arrived. The town's mail carrier rode up to the gate and handed Thomas a small envelope. Thomas looked at the name written on the front, and then at Lila. "It's for you," he said. Lila's hands trembled as she took it. She recognized the handwriting right away. It was her mother's. She did not open it at first. She held it, feeling its weight, as if it carried not just words, but all the years she had left behind. That evening, after the children went to bed, Lila sat at the table and slowly broke the seal. The letter was short. Her mother wrote about the village, about how things were the same, about how people still talked. She wrote that Lila's father was older now, tired more often. At the end, there was a simple line: "We heard you are doing well. We hope you have found peace." Lila read the letter twice. It did not ask her to come back. It did not blame her. It did not apologize either. It simply existed, like a bridge that had been placed between the past and the present. She folded the paper and held it close. Thomas noticed her quiet mood. "Do you want to talk about it?" he asked. Lila nodded. "It's from my mother." He sat across from her, listening as she told him what it said. "How do you feel?" he asked. Lila thought for a long moment. "I don't feel angry," she said. "I don't feel sad either. I just feel—" Thomas smiled gently. Thomas smiled gently. Thomas smiled gently. That's a good place to be. The next day, the children asked what the letter was about. Lila told them it was from where she used to live. "Do you miss it?" Sam asked. Lila looked out at the fields, at the sky, at the house that had become her home. "I remember it," she said, "but this is where I belong now." Summer brought a small festival to the town. It was a simple event, with music, food, and games for the children. Thomas decided they would all go. Lila felt nervous as they walked into the busy street. She had grown used to the quiet of the ranch, but the children were excited, pulling her along, pointing at every colorful stall and sound. They played games, shared sweet treats, and listened to a small band play cheerful songs. For a moment, Lila forgot all the years when she had felt invisible in places like this. A woman from town approached her. "You're good with the kids?" she said kindly. Lila smiled. "They're good with me, too." The woman nodded. "You've made a strong family out there." The word family echoed in Lila's mind. That night, back at the ranch, the children fell asleep quickly, tired from the day. Lila sat on the porch, watching fireflies blink in the dark. Thomas joined her, carrying 2 cups of warm tea. He handed one to her and sat down. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" he asked. Lila looked at the stars. "Sometimes," she said, "but I don't feel afraid of it anymore." Thomas was quiet for a moment. "Neither do I." The days continued, full of small, steady moments that built something strong and lasting. The children learned new things. The ranch grew healthier. The house felt warmer, even on the coolest nights. One morning, Rose came to Lila with a serious face.
"I told my friend at school that you're my mom," she said.
Lila's heart skipped. What did she say? She said, I'm lucky, Rose replied. Lila knelt down, meeting her eyes. You have a mother who loved you very much, she said gently. I don't want to take her place. Rose thought about this, then hugged Lila tightly. You don't take her place, she said. You stand next to her. Lila felt tears rise, but she smiled. Later that day, Eli came to Thomas. I'm glad Lila is here, he said. The house feels right now. Thomas placed a hand on his son's shoulder. I feel the same way. As the year moved on, Lila began to help in town as well. She visited an older neighbor who lived alone, bringing food and sitting to talk. She helped a young mother with her chores when the woman fell ill. Slowly, Lila became known not as the woman who arrived from somewhere else, but as the woman who showed up when someone needed help. One evening, Thomas found Lila writing at the table. What are you working on? He asked. A letter, she said. To who? To my parents. She wrote about the children. She wrote about the garden. 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 About the quiet evenings and the wide sky. She did not write about pain or blame. She wrote about the life she had built, piece by piece, with care and patience. At the end she wrote, I have found a place where I am valued for who I am, not for what I can give. I hope one day you can understand that. She sealed the letter and felt a lightness she had never known before. One afternoon, the children planned a surprise. They asked Lila and Thomas to close their eyes and wait in the yard. When they opened them, they saw a small table set with flowers from the field and a simple meal. We made it, Sam said proudly. Lila laughed. It's beautiful. They all sat together, eating and talking, the sun shining down on them. In that moment, Lila looked around at the faces near her. 5 children, each different, each carrying their own stories. A man who had opened his home when she had nowhere else to go. A land that had given her space to grow. She realized something important. Family was not something that happened all at once. It was something built in small moments, in shared meals, in quiet talks, in standing together when things were hard. That night, as the sky darkened and the stars appeared, Thomas spoke. I don't know how we became this, he said, gesturing toward the house, the land, the life around them, but I'm glad we did. Lila smiled. Me too. The children ran around them, chasing each other in the fading light. Their laughter filled the air. Lila thought about the girl she had been, standing on a dusty road, feeling unwanted and lost. She thought about the woman she was now, standing in a place where her name was called with warmth, not judgment. She held her grandmother's wooden charm in her hand, the same one she had brought with her on that long journey. It felt smoother now, worn by time and touch. The wind moved through the grass, soft and steady, no longer whispering secrets of shame or blame. It carried only the sound of life, of belonging, of peace. Lila looked up at the wide sky and took a deep breath. Her journey had not ended with being sent away. It had begun with being chosen.